Carina Federico, a partner in the tax group at Crowell and Mooring, and I'm here today with Tyler O'Connor, a partner in the Energy and Government Affairs groups at Crowell and Mooring. Tyler rejoined Crowell in 2022 after serving as Energy Counsel to the House Energy and Commerce Committee, where he helped draft the IRA. Thank you for joining us today, Tyler. How do you expect the presidential election to affect the IRA provisions?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for inviting me, Carina. You know, it's a question that a lot of folks are asking, and I think as you would expect, it depends on the outcome. If President Biden is reelected, I think we can expect business as usual. The real question is, what happens if President Trump or Governor Haley or a Republican wins the presidential election? And I think then we're in for a bumpy ride. If a Republican were to be elected president, first, I think we could expect the Treasury Department and IRS to reconsider a lot of the guidance and final IRA tax credit rules that have been issued over the past year and a half. And if there's a change in the Republican Congress, I think we could see attempts to repeal large portions of the IRA, if not the whole thing.
Thanks, Tyler. Are there any particular provisions that you think might be targeted first?
Yeah, you know, we've seen a lot of discontent, particularly among Republicans, about the EV tax credits, Section 30D. And we've also seen a lot of displeasure about the domestic content bonus provisions and the prevailing wage requirements that are included in the investment tax credit and production tax credit provisions. Of course, those provisions also have a lot of supporters among various different types of stakeholders. So I think we could expect a real battle royale, if you will, in the event those provisions are repealed or if Republicans attempt to repeal them.
And speaking of repeal, what do you think the chances are that the entire IRA or certain provisions might be repealed with a change in office?
I think if there's a Republican president but a Democratic Congress, I think the likelihood of repeal or even partial repeal is unlikely. But if there's a Republican president with, particularly if both houses of Congress are Republican, then I think at least an attempt to repeal the IRA is very likely. And I suspect in the event that Republicans control both houses of Congress and the presidency, they're going to go for the whole enchilada. They're not going to stop short by maybe identifying specific provisions that they think should be tweaked or tailored. I would expect an attempt at a more wholesale reform.
And what about you mentioned earlier, the regulations that might be ripe for being revised or repealed if they're not finalized? Do you think there's a high likelihood that Treasury and the IRS will have most of the regulations finalized by Inauguration Day, or can we expect there still to be some outstanding regulations?
I think this administration understands that it is of the highest priority that they issue as many final rules as possible. Whether they're able to achieve that by Inauguration Day, I think is an open question, but I certainly expect them to try to. And in fact, there's a time-honored tradition in Washington of administrations issuing rules up until the last possible moment. And so to the extent there's any outstanding guidance or final rules yet to be issued, I would expect the administration to do their best to issue them by January 20th.
With all of these considerations, what should companies do to prepare for the possibility that the laws may change or that the regulations may change with a change in Congress or a change in presidency?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a question, frankly, we're getting from a lot of our clients these days. They rely on the IRA to make a lot of their projects work, and they're benefiting from the tax credits. And so their question is the same as yours, which is what can they do kind of as a rear guard or defensive action to make sure those provisions aren't amended? I think they can do a few things. First, they should start now building relationships with the members of Congress, with the champions, with the folks within a potential second Trump administration, to start having those relationships and conversations about the importance of these provisions, not just to their businesses, but to folks in the districts where projects are being built. And to that end, I think something that would be really helpful is that companies can typically articulate the benefits of the IRA or of any tax provision to its bottom line, but they don't always have data showing how it actually affects the lives of real people in their district, in various districts where they're doing business. And so I think making sure they start tracking and understanding the job creation numbers, the economic benefits they're bringing to the region, the taxes that they're remitting to local governments and state governments and school districts, I think having all of that information so that you can marshal it is really important. And then finally, I think we need to start identifying, or we being proponents of the IRA, need to start identifying those provisions that are of the highest value and that are most important to keep, and understanding where perhaps trade-offs could be made in the event there is some type of negotiation. There's a long saying in Washington that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I think having that engagement, having those facts ready, I think that's all critically important. And so I would encourage, whether you're a bank, a developer, a manufacturer who's benefiting from these provisions, I think it's time to start getting involved and planning for what 2025 and beyond might look like.
Thanks for joining us today, Tyler. It sounds like it's going to be a really interesting year in politics.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to continuing this conversation as the year unfolds.